All right, welcome to the Zone Live. This is week 2 of the high school football season. Our second week here. Have a newcomer with us here. You remember him from last year. Hayden Henry joined us. He was covering Gilmer last week against Liberty Allo over in Tyler, so he didn't get to join us, but hopefully he'll be with us the rest of the year. Glad to be back. This is week 2 of the season. A lot of good games this week. We're gonna discuss as many as we can. We've got about 15 minutes here. Try to get to as many games as we can. Feel free to send us some questions. We'd love to be able to answer your questions if you have those. But guys, let's get right into it, and let's jump in there, Hayden, with John Tyler at Longview. 7:30 game Friday night at Lobo Stadium. It's going to be a fun atmosphere, I'm sure, but a whole lot going on this week.
First game at Lobo Stadium, definitely gonna be fun. Coach King told me yesterday, and I think it sums up the Lobos so far this season, that if they can just get out of their own way, then they'll be all right. And that certainly wasn't the case last week in Lufkin. A couple big miscues. Lufkin scored 17 points in the final minute, or just over 2 minutes heading into the half, due to some Longview miscues. I don't think this is a team that's 30 points worse than Lufkin, who was a very impressive team, by the way, taking nothing away from them. Then we go into this week, had an off-the-field incident Tuesday night. It's going to lead to a little shake-up Friday night. Might see some different faces out there. But, in order for them to get out of their own way, now they got a very potent John Tyler team coming into Longview, that brings weapons on both sides of the ball. I think what we heard most about this week from the Lions is their defense, much improved. Held Plano to 2.8 yards per carry last week. You take away a 75-yard touchdown that was a breakdown in the John Tyler secondary, and that goes to 0.5 yards per carry. So this is going to be a big test for the Lobo defense. Some standouts from last week on defensive line: Stacy Nelson, very impressive. Khalil Williams stood out. Offensively, it's going to have to rely a lot on Desmond Chumley, 3-year starter. He's going to have to make some things happen through the air as well as with his legs. Been a very impressive week with establishing the connection between Chumley and some of his receivers, where they lost the entire receiving corps from last year. Antonio Carter's been impressive on that area. Special teams, they all saw Kiki Kuti turn on the Jets and really put the nail in the coffin to close out the first half last week. They've been working a lot on that. Andres Perez, first year with punter, he's averaging 45 yards per kick. So I think King summed it up very well yesterday. They get out of their own way, they'll be fine.
Right, and again, you mentioned the off-field incident. I mean, there's some players suspended, not going to be with them. It's a tough week, when that happens to anybody, especially when you're playing a good John Tyler team. But the thing we do know about the Longview Lobos and Coach John King, the players are going to be ready. They'll play hard. They're not going to let distractions get to them. They're going to go out and they're going to play. They're going to play a good football game. John Tyler is very talented. They jumped to number 2 in the polls this week. Longview, again, like you said, they're not as bad as they looked last week. They were young. They went on the road. They were missing JaMychal Hasty, the top running back. A lot of things going against them last week, in the season opener. So that it just made it double tough for them. I don't know if the Lobos will bounce back and win this game, but I guarantee you're going to see a good football team out there this week. John King will have them prepared. But let's move on and talk a little bit about Gilmer and Pine Tree now. And let you both talk about this one. Hayden's covered Gilmer. Brandon saw Pine Tree last week. Let's go ahead and start with the Pirates. This game's also a 7:30 Friday game. It's at Pirate Stadium. So, Brandon, what can you tell us about the Pirates?
This could be a fun game, and it could be a interesting test for both teams, because I think for Gilmer, while a lot of people expect them to win this game, this may be one of the best offenses they'll see all year. And both sides, there's going to be a lot of dynamic players that, I said in my preview that's going to run the zone tomorrow, that either team's got guys that can score from anywhere on the field. For Gilmer, you got Blake Lynch, Chris Boyd, Chase Tate, and then McLean Carter, you saw what he did. And then for Pine Tree, Mason Hayes, Jonathan Giddings, Quay Ward. There's so many guys that there could be a lot of points scored in this game and a lot of big plays. It's going to be which defense can slow down the other offense. But, I think for both teams, this will be the probably the best offense either will see most of the year.
Should be fun. You've seen the Buckeyes. So.
That summed it up. Gilmer came out last week, and especially on the offensive side of the ball, looked as polished as you could be for the first week. like Brandon said, Blake Lynch, Chris Boyd, their threats to score every time they touch the ball, as they did last weekend against Liberty Iowa. Gilmer had some little miscues on defense. That's where they didn't shine as bright, and especially in the special teams, as can be expected with week 1. But I think this is going to be a good test for both teams.
Yeah, and I think the key for Pine Tree obviously is the turnovers. They can't you can't turn the ball over. It killed them last week against Jacksonville. That they're okay, but you turn the ball over against Gilmer, and then all of a sudden it's points the other way quickly. So
and a lot of last week's could be it was a wet night. It rained a lot when I drove into Jacksonville. It was raining hard, so it rained a lot. So it made a little bit of slick ball, and so maybe that was a little issue. But if not, then it could be trouble.
Could be a long night. All right, let's move on now. Let's talk about Nacogdoches. Oh, sorry.
We had one question about the incident after the green.
Okay, what you got?
If those players would be able to be in the game.
No,
they
all the players involved are suspended indefinitely.
And indefinitely, we don't know what that means. We don't know if that means several weeks. If it means 1 week, we'll try to find that out next week, obviously. But they will not play tomorrow night.
We also had the question of John Tyler Longview game, who won maybe last year.
They didn't. This is the first time they played since 2011. They scrimmaged last year.
They have a great rivalry though, and you can read about that in the zone. I'm not sure the numbers.
88. This is the 88th meeting.
88th meeting between the two teams, and so it's a great football rivalry between those two teams. They haven't played in a couple of years. So all right, thanks for the questions. Moving on now to Nacogdoches Hallsville, and this one, this is our etvarsity.com game of the week. These two teams coming off wins. Nacogdoches last-second field goal against Kilgore. Hallsville really just hammered Carthage last week. There's no other way to put it. Surprised there. I wasn't surprised as much that Hallsville won, but I was really shocked at the score on that one. Again, I've said it all week. I think Carthage, and we'll talk about the Bulldogs here in a minute, but I think they're going to be a lot better if they were just real young, and Hallsville's pretty good. This game, to me, this one's going to come down. Hallsville ran the ball really well last week, 300 and something yards on the ground. They threw it when they needed to, and very efficient. Their quarterback, White Wolverton, had 2 incomplete passes. I think it was 14 out of 16 or something like that. So they can throw the ball, but I promise you don't want to try to throw the ball too much against Nacogdoches. What do we say, 60 something like 60 offers between 2 of their defensive backs, Brandon Jones and Jalen Lane. You're not going to make a living throwing the football against Nacogdoches. So if Hallsville can run the football effectively, they've got a really good chance to win this football game.
And they'll be doing that against a very veteran offensive line, as Brandon wrote about. With I think 5 guys coming back up front. Yeah. So that'll be a big key, is getting that running game going.
Okay, absolutely. We'll move on now to Lyndale Carthage real quick. We mentioned the Bulldogs last week. Again, to replace them, and I said the same thing last week, you don't replace a record-setting quarterback, record-setting running back, and 2 just standout receivers like Carthage had to, and bounce back immediately. But I think they will bounce back. I think this is, by the end of the year, they're obviously, I think, going to be really good. This could be another game, though, where they struggle. Lyndale had a very solid game last week. They've got athletes. Worry about the Bulldogs a little bit this week, but I think they're going to be all right.
Lyndale was one of those surprises last week too. They beat Chapel Hill in a close game, and but like you said on Carthage, when I talked to Coach Plunk from Hallsville last week, he said don't read too much into this. He goes, Carthage was playing a lot of kids both ways that hadn't even played varsity before. And he said Hallsville had depth, they saw it, and they took advantage. He said a lot of teams won't be able to do that to Carthage, and by the end of the year, he said he expects Carthage to be rolling like Carthage always does.
Absolutely.
This is a little side note, but I think last week, or maybe it sets the tone for this whole year, we're seeing these teams that are definitely struggling early more so, and then but come around in a month, I think definitely with Coach Stratt, definitely with Coach King, Coach Wood, and Kilgore, maybe more so than years past we hadn't seen just barrel through the whole way. Right. We're going to see teams get better and stronger than they looked last week.
Right, and I think they will because of the athletes they have there, but also with the coaching. I mean, those 3 guys have been through it. They're used to winning, and they're going to figure out a way to do it. So I think all 3 of those teams that you mentioned are going to be they're going to turn it on eventually. A couple more games to get to real quick. We've got a few more minutes. Spring Hill and Van, very intriguing game. Panthers coming off a last-second win. Troy Duran kicked a field goal. Brandon's got a nice story in tomorrow's newspaper in the News-Journal on their special teams, special ops, they like to call them. And that could be could be another factor, but it could be for both of these teams. Spring Hill ended up with a couple of big plays on special teams last week. Vanna had a 90-yard kickoff return last week. So, special teams came into play, and it could happen again this week. What are some of the other games you guys see on the schedule? We do have a couple Saturday games we'll talk about before we close out. But as far as Friday night games, what are some of the other games you guys see that really catch your eye?
I think Gladewater Pittsburgh could be a really good one. Pittsburgh, them falling to Pleasant Grove last week kind of surprised people, but I think that's going to be a really good game. And that's one that stood out to me.
One for me would be Atlanta and Henderson.
Oh, yeah.
One of those teams is going to come out a very solid start to 2-0 on the season. Let's see, Atlanta trounced New Boston last week. Henderson edged a very good Athens team. So
Right.
I think that's going to be an intriguing matchup to watch tomorrow night in Henderson.
Okay. Got some other good, White Oak, Mount Vernon. White Oak got a big win last week. I think, maybe shocked a little, some people. Again, not that they won, but they won that big because, White Oak lost a lot of players.
Yeah,
So,
I was definitely shocked.
to
by
come
it.
back from that one. I think Elysia Fields Jefferson, if you like
That's always a good
if
one.
you like defense, that should be a lot of fun there. And Sabine and Frankston, see if the Cardinals can go start the season 2-0. That'll be fun. A couple of Saturday games to talk about before we go. Kilgore, you talked about the Bulldogs trying to bounce back. They have to travel to the Houston area. They're going to play Corpus Christi Flower Bluff. That's a Saturday game. Brandon will be there to cover that one. So look for tweets and updates on that one. And then Saturday night, the first KYKX game of the week, West Rusk and Union Grove at Lobo Stadium. We'll have George Whitley covering that one for us, so we'll have updates on that one too. But talk real quick about the Kilgore and Flower Bluff game.
It should be a totally different styles. Kilgore only threw the ball 5 times last week, but when they did, Xavier Gaona found they had big plays. He was 4 or 5, and most of the time those were to Jared Wood. But Kilgore's going to run the ball. That's where they're going to make their money. Kevin Justice, the Houston commit. So if he gets to play on Saturday, this could be a little preview. Houston fans can see what they're going to see in a few years. But he went out last week with the injury against Nacogdoches. But Jacorius Smith, he came in and did a heck of a job. 22 carries, 169 yards. So Kilgore's loaded with running backs as they always are. But Flower Bluff, they're going to throw it a little bit more.
Okay, should be a good game. We need to close it out. We have a question?
From Bernie, on the news, they said that the Lobo kids at Walmart's were knocking things off the shelves. Is that right?
Again, as far as we know, what we had in our story is what we know about the incident. We've heard several different things. We haven't been able to verify through either the police department or Walmart. Again, we know there was an incident. There was something that went on that Coach King didn't like, and there's no police report filed, but Coach King said, hey, this is not how Lobos act, so he's taking disciplinary action.
It's being handled.
It's being handled is the way Coach King put it, and I'm sure it will be. But again, we don't know all the details. I wish we did, but it's being pretty tight-lipped about it all the way around, and again, all we know is that the kids are not going to play, and they will be disciplined. So anyway, one thing before we close it out, I'm going to let you know that next week the Zone Live will move to Wednesday, and that'll be that way for the rest of the season. Still be at a 5:30 slot, but it's going to be on Wednesdays for the rest of the season, the regular season, and in the playoffs. And so put that on your calendar, and again, please ask us questions. We'll do our best to answer those questions for you. But otherwise, keep listening. Keep checking etvarsity.com all night tomorrow night. We'll have scores and updates for you all night long. But appreciate you joining us.